I'm showing 10 on the dot, so we will go ahead and kick things off. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I'm a part of the DreamBank team here, and so excited to welcome you all back to our virtual stage. Whether it's your first time joining us here, welcome. Whether have joined us in the past, welcome back, and would love to just take a couple of moments here and give you some context as to who we are, what we do, and why we exist. So, here at American Family Insurance, we believe that communities are stronger and futures are brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. And that's why DreamBank was created. It's an inspirational community destination and virtual experience that's dedicated to dreamers everywhere. Offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, to overcome obstacles, and to stay motivated. Really excited to welcome back to the DreamBank stage, Victoria Thayer. Happy Tax Day for all the accountants, or everyone for that matter. But today, Victoria will be chatting a little bit about what to expect in your first year of business, or her experience within her first year of business. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Victoria. Victoria, take it away.
Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to be here sharing some of my experiences during my first year in business. So let's get started. So what we're going to be covering today, it's a brief introduction so that you know who I am. And then we're going to jump into mistakes. I know we try to avoid mistakes, but truly that's part of growth. So we're going to go through some of my just few of my many mistakes that I made in my first year of business. And then we're gonna close it up with some like key takeaways that I wish that someone would have told me when I was starting my business. Yes. So a little bit about me. So I am originally from Venezuela. I moved to the United States when I was 18 to study chemical engineering. I think talking about pivoting and not having like a straight path, not everything works out the way that you think it's going to work out. I started chemical engineering, but I actually ended up becoming a CPA. Becoming an accountant was kind of a journey. I didn't know truly what my passion, my purpose was until like I got exposed to accounting. So that was kind of like my first pivot in my professional career. Then surprisingly enough, I started with like corporate accounting, and then I moved to public accounting after a couple of years. I wanted to seek more client interaction, and that's when I truly found my why. Worked in public accounting for close to 10 years, and then like many of you, I got the itch of like, oh my God, I want to do something on my own. I want to try something new. I was very scared, but that was something that I knew I wanted to do. And at some point, I always told myself that my biggest fear was not really failing, but never achieving my fullest potential. So I knew that I would have always wondered what would have it been if I would have tried to start my own business. So looking back, it was 2023 when I was just having a lunch with my employer, and actually just came naturally, and I just quit my job that day. Didn't have a business name, didn't have a business plan. Probably should have prepared a little bit more, but it just seemed like that was my true calling. So that was when I decided to quit my job. And then within the first week, it was like, oh my God, I'm unemployed. What am I going to do? That's when I started thinking about like, okay, I want to create a CPA firm. This is what I want it to look like. So that first week was a lot of learning, was a lot of Googling around. So that's kind of like a little bit of the journey. And now looking back, it's April 15, 2025. We have been in business now, like it's going to be close to 2 years. We're going to be coming to our anniversary in June. So that's going to be soon. So that's a little bit about me. Like a little bit of background, my firm, Novi CPA, is located in Madison, Wisconsin. So I am local of this area, and we work mostly with businesses and in the life sciences, biotech, and manufacturing. So one of the main things about like the title says what to expect on your first year of business. I would say you need to expect to make a bunch of mistakes. Coming from like a traditional job where you're evaluated on performance, I will always avoid mistakes. That was like kind of like what I will always do. I'd like try to do a perfect job, like try to cross all of my T's. making sure that there was no mistakes being made. Um, Starting my business, I understood that in entrepreneurship, it's a complete opposite. There's no really a clear way to avoid mistakes, and actually, you need to seek them. You need to fail fast. You need to make the most mistakes because that's the only way that you're gonna learn and be able to continue growing. When you start a new business, there's so many unknowns. There's no way that you're ever gonna feel prepared or that you're ever gonna feel like you have all the knowledge necessary to start your business. So you just need to get started. Even like the small steps will keep you moving forward, but just embrace making mistakes. That's one of the things that we'll hope that you guys walk away with is mistakes are okay, mistakes are important. Um, so do not avoid them. So in this kind of like talking about mistakes, I have made so many mistakes my first year, but I wanted to share a couple of them with you because I think that it will allow you to see that like, hey, like sometimes we see the highlights of a lot of business owners. We see, oh my God, look at them earning all these awards and oh, they're like in the cover of a magazine or oh, everything comes so easy to them. And in reality is that there is a lot happening behind the scenes. There is a lot of like sweat, tears. There's so many things going on behind, and sometimes a lot of people don't put in a magazine the mistakes being made, right? We always hear about like the success of Apple, the success of Amazon, but we never hear about all those other projects that Amazon and all these other big companies are doing that actually are failures. So like this is important to kind of like broadcast, and for me, it's very important to share with you. So one of the first things, like the first month even, one of my first lessons was handling rejection and knowing that that doesn't imply that I'm less valuable. So at the beginning, I started to feel a lot of like imposter syndrome, like, oh, who am I to start my own firm? And like, oh, do I have enough value to provide to others? So that's the first like barrier that I had to overcome, learning how to take rejection in a way that like not everyone is going to be your client, and that's okay. Rejection is part of business. You're going to get rejected by potential customers, by potential team members, and that's just part of the journey. I remember when I got my first rejection, they didn't agree with my proposal. I remember talking to a mentor, and he was saying that like, hey, that's okay. Like every single person is gonna need a different fit, and that's why there's so many CPA firms, for example. That's what there's so many businesses. So understanding that rejection is okay, you need to put yourself out there. And I have to say, the more you do it, and now at this point I have gotten way more rejections. Like the first one was like I think the hardest. After that, I understand like, hey, it's okay. That means that I one no means like, it's like a new opportunity somewhere else. So always keeping that in mind. And like at the beginning you may have like 10, 20 no's, but when you get a yes, I remember when I got my first client, that really made a difference. And it made me thankful for all the no's that I received early on. So that will be like the first lesson that I will want to share with you from what I learned from that mistake. I remember like taking it very personal and understanding that rejection is part of business and to not say what your value is. Um, Another lesson that I learned the first year is cash flow. So as a CPA, you will think that like, okay, like I am pretty proficient in profit and loss and financial statements. But what my understanding at the beginning was not really coming to like how is that going to affect my day to day? In a profit and loss, for example, it may look like your business is going to be doing amazing, but if you're not collecting cash fast enough to be able to grow your business, then it may look good on paper, but it's not going to look good like in your bank account to be able to like pay employees or invest more in equipment or whatever your situation is. So for me, the first month is understanding cash flow. So I was thinking about like there's so many business models out there. What is the best fit for my business? So talking about like CPA firms, in a traditional CPA firm, I went with like the traditional way. Okay, we're gonna invoice later, like almost like lawyers, right? Like tracking time, sending invoices. And I remember I got one of my first contracts was one that they were like net 60. So like I didn't get paid. So if I like bill them for April, the first week of May, after that first week, it will pass 60 days for me to receive any cash. Um, so I understood that that contract was not a good fit for how I wanted to run the business and how I wanted to scale it up. So understanding how your specific industries work, what business models are out there for you that you can pick from. And in my case, I knew that like, hey, like what I decided to do is subscription packages. So I started to offer like a subscription of like, okay, every month is going to be this X amount of dollars for this service for a contract of 6 months or 1 year. That really allowed me to be able to scale up and to be able to know what my cash flow is going to be in the coming months so that it allows me to actually hire fast. Like I remember I hired my first employee after 2 months, 2 to 3 months of being in business. Um, so again, understanding cash flow is very important. You don't need to have like a super fancy accounting software. You can use even Excel. That's what I used at the beginning. And I put all of my expenses in there so that I knew specifically how much money was going to be leaving my account and how much money do I needed to keep the business afloat. And again, the first year, majority of businesses are not profitable. And I tell you this not only based on my own experience, but also based on what I see with clients. At the beginning, if you're very lucky to be profitable at the beginning, that's amazing. But just go with a mindset that it's not going to be like our overnight millions in the bank account. It's going to take some effort, some time until you build your book of business and you have that consistency, until your team is up to speed. So that's one of my first lessons too, the first couple of months. It was about cash flow and deciding what business model was the best fit for what I wanted to do with my business. Another big lesson was defining your values and mission. Sometimes I thinking back when I was starting, I was like, oh, I don't need to do this. Like, this is for big corporations that have this like fancy like mission statements and values. And I had to learn the hard way after I started hiring people that I needed to have something that I could share and that we could all stand by. Because again, you're creating something from scratch and you are the creator. You are the one that decides like, hey, what do you want your business to stand for? What do you want to be the main key values? And after that, having that kind of like that North Star will allow you to do better decisions with hiring because then you will attract the kind of people that will stand by those values. You will know what type of customers you want to work with that will also fit that mission statement that you have. Also understanding what is a negotiable and what's a non-negotiable in your business. So there are things that, for example, like maybe for you, you're like, okay, I want to be a remote business. So for me, a non-negotiable will be like, okay, I want to be remote all the time. Or on the other way, if you have like an actual storefront, you're like, hey, like a non-negotiable is like I need all my employees to be in the store. So those having clear all those those ideas of where you want your business to go is very important. Even though it may be just yourself at the beginning, which again, when I was starting, it was only myself, and I always use the word we. It was like me, myself, and I. But because I had that vision of like, hey, eventually it's going to be more of us. Right now it's only me. But I learned that having a mission and values really gave you a north and almost like a compass to where to go, and always going back to like, hey, where I'm moving towards, does that get me closer to that mission? And am I being truthful to my values? Um, so for us at Novi, we set our values, and our values are camaraderie, commitment to care, and continuous growth. Um, and those are the ones that resonated with the team, with who we are. And again, I invite you, it doesn't have to be anything super fancy. Just sit down and try to think of what is that business that you dream of. Another big lesson from the first year, leadership starts with ownership. I like, and this came after like after several situations that with a customer and also with team members that I had, and thinking about like, okay, like, oh no, it's victimizing yourself is not something good to do as a business owner. There's always going to be situations happening around you. What we can control is how we react to all those situations. So that was one of the things that I had to learn, instead of saying like, oh, how could they do that to me, or like after everything I have done, or things like that. That's spiral where I felt also after my first year. But instead of that, taking those lessons and what happened and really helping you identify, okay, what could I have done better, and how can I next time avoid all of this? Again, leadership starts with ownership. Own your decisions. You may have made a mistake, and that's okay. Just owning it and learning from that. That's really what matters. Um, Learn and pivot fast. So again, I can give you a couple of examples on this one. We have tried a lot of different technologies in the business. One of them, for example, was using Loom videos. So we tried to do Loom videos for financials, so that clients that didn't have the time to read through the financials could just watch a video. Um, Again, we took the decision, we made it very fast, and then we started asking clients, hey, are you even watching these? Are you not watching? And it's okay. Maybe we just wasted a lot of time just recording these videos and no one was watching it. And hey, we decided to pivot. Like, hey, some clients prefer to just have a meeting, other clients are not even watching it. But it's okay to just pivot from an idea. At the moment, it may seem like an amazing idea, but then maybe it's not working out. That's okay. So just learn from all of those like decisions that you're making and pivot, like analyze it. Not because you made a decision, now it's gonna be like, oh my God, like now I'm gonna look like a failure because I made this decision, it's not working out. That's completely fine. You can just evaluate, see, okay, is this investment making sense or not? I can tell you another thing that we did was we did a lot of advertising in magazines at the beginning. And then when we started looking at like the return on investment, it didn't really make sense. So we stopped doing that, and then we switch our marketing strategy to be more about trade shows, more targeted to our ideal clients. So again, it's okay to make mistakes, just learn and pivot fast. The faster that you can pivot, the least the damage is going to be. So that's another big lesson. Going back to separating ego from business, a lot of entrepreneurs are very smart people, very, very smart. And I think that, at least for me as well, I attach the success of the business to who I am or who I was as a person, right? So that is one of the things that sometimes make failure feel so devastating. But I have learned that you need to separate your ego from the business. The business is on its own. You are just a steward of your business. So again, failure is not going to be a reflection of your value or who you are. That's just the normal course of owning a business. Again, like I may be like reiterating a lot about like ego and failure. And I have to say that before I started my business, I never did any sort of coaching. Once I started my business, I actually was the first time that I signed up for some coaching because I needed an outsider person to also look at the circumstances that I was living in my business to be able to help me analyze it as a third person and not putting my emotions on part of the business. Again, that was kind of like a work on myself, as well as like how to become a better leader and a better CPA business owner for my team members, my customers. And in that point also, it's okay to ask for help, guys. Like sometimes we want to seem like, oh no, we are like super superman or superwoman over here, like we can do it all. Sometimes we need help, and it's okay to reach out to to your friends, to mentors, and seek for that help. But like just colleagues, other fellow business owners, it's okay to ask for help because we all go through this. Sometimes we only see like the wins and the glamorous portion of like, oh, look at how successful they are, look at how big they have grown. But we're all going through the process of growth, which means making a lot of mistakes. Um, And sometimes, that's kind of like behind the curtains. So, but everyone is very open to sharing those moments if you are seeking for help. Oh, another of my lessons my first year is the scarcity mindset and hiring. So when I was starting the business, going back to that kind of like that imposter syndrome, I was thrilled that anyone wanted to even join my business. I was just thrilled, and I would pretty much take anyone that would be interested on joining the team. That was going from a scarcity mindset. Um, in other industries, in the accounting industry, there is always this mentality about like, oh no, there's not enough accountants out there. Um, so whenever I saw or found out about anyone that was interested, I would just take them on. So our recruiting process was very fast. So I was hiring way too fast. Um, and then I had to learn the hard way after a couple of experiences with different team members that employers aren't just there to do like a job, but they're more investments and they need to be a good fit for your mission and your values. And now our hiring process have changed significantly. So now before it used to be just like we met them once and I was no kidding you guys, I was walking into those interviews with already an offer letter for them. So I was pretty much just like giving it to anyone that was interested. Now we have a process that is two interviews, one virtual interview with me, and then I make sure that like, okay, is that a person that fits with the requirements for this role? What are the aspirations of the person? We talk about salary requirements as well in that first call. Then if we're a good fit in that call, then we send them a assessment for skill assessment that kind of looks into like their values and see if overall are we going to be a good fit. So it's one more data point that we have. Now we also look at their references. We try to reach out to them to learn more about how they work, what have been some of their challenges. And then the final step of a recruiting process now is a lunch with the entire team. Again, I have learned that we want to make sure that we all get along together, that we have good synergy. So, and it also allows me to see how does that person interact with, like in a restaurant, for example, how do they interact with the waiter? Are they polite? Are they respectful? It allows me to see like the different type of like a skill set that I will hope that someone that is in the customer service industry will have. Again, like a CPAs, we're working with a lot of clients, so I am looking for those skills. So that's something else that it was like a learning process. It's okay. I failed with my first couple hires. It was not a good fit. But then it's not just like beating myself on it, but okay, what can I do better next time to ensure that the people that we're hiring are the right fit? Yes. So another lesson was about investment, reinvesting in your business. So one of the things that I will encourage all of you when you're starting out is to really sit down and think about what do you want this business to look like. A lot of business owners just want to be themselves on their own calendar and have just don't have employees, just be there in their own with their customers, and that's okay. But if you know that, then your roadmap is going to look different. For me, when I was starting out, I always knew I wanted to build a firm of like 30 to 50 people here in Madison. So for me, I knew that I needed to reinvest in the business before I started taking money out and paying myself more. Like I kept reinvesting. So for me, it was more important to reinvest on talent, on team members. It was more important to reinvest on marketing because I wanted to put our name more out there to attract their ideal clients. And I have this plan of like, okay, from 1 to the 3rd year, all is going to be about reinvestment. I'm just taking the minimum that I need, and everything else is going back into it. Again, that's going to help you to really get there faster if you have the opportunities financially to kind of like not take as much money of your business. That's going to help you to get there faster. But again, it goes back to knowing that like when you're starting your business, just sit down and close your eyes and think, if I have achieved success, of what do you think success will look like? What does my business look like? Where am I? So again, like that's gonna be key as you move through the day to day in your business. You know, not every day is gonna be cheery and happy. We're gonna have bad days too, and sometimes having that vision will always fuel you to keep moving forward. So here are some other takeaways that I wish someone would have shared with me when I was starting. Jumping into the unknown, I was telling you that when I quit my job, I wanted everything to be perfect. I remember that it took me almost a month to tell anyone that I was starting a business because my website was not completely flawless. I wanted my website to be flawless. I wanted to have all the softwares. I wanted to have like my email signature. I wanted to have so many things like just like ready that I stopped myself from telling people that I was starting a business. I was not really putting myself out there. Um, and I have to tell you, like, that is one of my biggest mistakes and regrets of thinking back. It's like, I wish I would have started telling people sooner. No, I had to wait until like everything was perfect to put it on my social media and tell people in my network. So jumping to the unknown it's never gonna be like the perfect time, and it's never everything going to be like just flawless. Like just start doing it. You can start small. And another thing too that I learned is that being small is actually a huge advantage, guys. I was telling you about how I was using the software Loom. If I was a big corporation, let's one of the big four companies in accounting, they in order for them to implement a software and to try and test it will take them forever to be able to like implement. For us, we were like three people back then. We like were like, okay, does that sound good? Yeah, let's do it. And then we started using it, and then we started seeing like, okay, are the clients liking it, not liking it? So being small is a huge advantage. You get to decide like, hey, maybe do I want to use AI to do some of my marketing? I don't know. You can decide so many things, and that's the cool thing about being small. You are the decision maker. You get to try a lot of things. If they don't work, okay, they don't work. It's okay. You move on to the next thing. Um, so those things are very, very, very important that you recognize that they are an advantage. So it's not a weakness. Before I used to think like, oh no, being small is a weakness. Like who is gonna like compare me with like bigger CPA firms? But actually, it's an advantage to be small. Um, I like to call ourselves like almost like a boutique CPA firm, you know? So yeah, so it's your strength, not your weakness. Another thing that I am not a marketing person, but it's one of the parts of the business that I enjoy the most. Um, I love marketing and branding. And I think that one of the first things that I did that first week that I was unemployed was to think about, okay, if I close my eyes, what colors do I want my business to be? So I went with green. That the little symbol of Novi was actually supposed to be like a sound wave. My husband actually drew it because we were talking, we wanted something like techie. So that was kind of like the fun part. But also, marketing and branding, it really makes you stand out in a world full of like so many businesses, right? And I have used branding and social media as a way to let people how we work, who we are, and what are our values without them even like becoming a customer. So a lot of people already know what we are all about just through social media. Like I remember whenever I go to networking events, people are like, "Oh yes, I see that you guys are doing this. You guys are so involved on that." So you start building trust with your community even before you have truly engage with them like in a client relationship. So again, like, and remember that marketing and branding are not only good for your like for seeking customers, but also for seeking team members. We got a couple of like people, prospect employees that have reached out to us just because they started following us in social media. So again, that is another way for you to that is like very cost effective. Like again, like when we started, we did it ourselves, everything. very easy nowadays with Canva. It's something that we use for social media. Um, you have the schedulers to be able to post every day. Another thing too, talking about posting every day, consistency is very important. So being in front of people is very important. In front of like future employees, future clients is so important. It's more than like, instead of like thinking like, oh, what am I going to write about? Just write about something that can be adding value, maybe a story humanizing yourself and your business. If you're attending networking events, I always say like, hey, take pictures of the event, tag people, increase your outreach that way. Having like the social media really will help you connect with future customers, and also thinking about where your ideal clients are at. So we have LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. However, all of our ideal clients are in LinkedIn. So think about where are your ideal clients. I can tell you that we also have done research about like, once you go into LinkedIn, they also show you like, okay, like when is the biggest engagement peaks and things like that. So we know that our posting days are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays are the ones where like our ideal customers are usually on their phones, and usually between 11 to 2 p.m. So we try to post around those times. And once you find that out, then it makes it so much easier. At the beginning, it was just myself doing it. And again, as like, as entrepreneurs, we know that the first couple months we have to do everything. It's like the social media hat, the, the actual accountant hat. There's so many hats, that the sales hat that we have to wear. But as you keep growing, I do think that outsourcing is important as well, for like being able to grow your business, and then you can focus on the areas where you can get the most value. So right now we actually have like a team member that focuses on our social media and website. Again, that's not where I started. That's where I have evolved little by little. Um, Again, like outsourcing can be, or like kind of delegating can be a very important step for you to own more of your time, and then you can focus maybe in sales. Maybe you can focus in creating like SOPs, standard operating procedures. Um, so again, this is like just a little bit on our social media. Another big takeaway that I wish I would have known when I was starting was about mentorship and community. I was very blessed then, right about when I was quitting, I got introduced to a couple of like entrepreneurial groups. Uh, Doing things in groups and being in like a community where there are other entrepreneurs and business owners is so key to your first business, to the first year in business. And if it is your first business, absolutely, because then you're like, oh my God, is this supposed to be happening or not? I remember I got a co-working space at a, like kind of like a community where like there's a lot of like entrepreneurs. And I remember that when I hired the first person to help me with accounting, I remember walking out and talking to a fellow entrepreneur, and I was telling him, hey, I don't know, I feel like this is getting worse. Like instead of them helping me with some of my work, I feel like not only I have to do my work, but now I have to teach them, and then I have to review their work, and then like if they make mistakes, then like it's just taking so much longer. And I remember like telling him like, is this normal? Like I feel like instead of getting brighter, it's getting darker. And I remember he telling me that like, hey, that's completely normal. That's part of the process, but you need to prioritize training them before you do other things, because it's an investment that you're training them now, so that then in the future they can help you with all of those activities. But at the beginning, I was like, oh my God, is this normal? Is this supposed to be going faster? Am I doing not a good enough job? So again, having that community around you will always help put things in perspective, because sometimes you may think like, oh no, it's just me, that I have not have a client in a while. I remember that I think it's around the summertime. We don't get that many inquiries. And again, in your first year of business, you don't even know like when when are you supposed to be like getting clients? Like is it like cyclical? Is it like only like people are looking for CPAs, accountants like from January through April? Like when should I be like hunting out for clients? So your first year, you really have no data. It's not like, oh my God, let's look at my data from prior years. Like there's nothing. So I remember that like having that community of saying like, okay, is it normal that I have had not even a single lead in this month? And instead of me spiralizing on the way that like, hey, I'm doing something wrong, I'm awful, I cannot do any sales. Other people that have been in this industry longer doing sales, they will tell me like, no, that's completely normal. Like this is like a time for you to kind of like not do sales, but probably work on like standard operating procedures or other items. Sales usually, now I have learned that sales usually happen for my industry in the fall, because that's when people are thinking about closing the books, they're thinking about a new accountant. So again, having those groups and really networking is gonna do you so good at the beginning. Not only for that, I remember that I was looking for a lawyer. I was able to get like different people referring different lawyers to me. That's how I also find like a company that could help me with my website. Again, like having that community would really allow you to propel yourself instead of you having to figure out everything on your own or doubting yourself about your decisions. Um, the other kind of takeaway that I wish I would have known my first year is like finding mentors. So I didn't get mentors until I had like 6 months in business, I think. But mentors are so important. I would say like having 2 to 4 mentors in different areas is probably very ideal. You'll be surprised. At the beginning, I was like, oh, who wants to be my mentor? But you'll be surprised how like happy and excited people are in our community to help you out. Um, Reach out to them, ask them to become your mentors. I meet with my mentors once a month, except during tax season. And it really helps me to share with them what's going on in the business. I have a mentor that is part of like is a CPA, so he knows more about like the specific work that I do. I have a mentor that is more in the HR related services, so I can share more about like, hey, this is what I'm doing for an onboarding of a new employee. These are the benefits that we're offering, and does that seem on par? So having those mentors is so key to having those people in your corner to be able to bounce idea of. And again, they're not going to tell you like, yeah, you need to do this, but they're going to let you know like, hey, this is what we are seeing out there, this is how we have done it before. And it really helps you put things into perspective. So I would say like having 2 to 4 mentors is great. There's a lot of community events where you can meet them, because maybe you're wondering like, well, I want to have those mentors, but where can I find them? Well, start attending the events where there's a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, and then like when you see that you admire someone, they are where you want to be in a couple years, like just reach out to them and ask them to meet with you. Another thing that I do sometimes if I don't have too much time to meet in person, I send them an email once a month with kind of like a highs, lows, and an ask for them. So I send them an email saying like, okay, this is the highs of the month. This is like the success that we are celebrating this month. Maybe we engaged 2 more clients. Maybe it was hiring a new employee. It could have been like, hey, we were featured in this magazine. Then we put the lows, which is going to be more about like, okay, these are things that could have gone better. These are things that like, it was not as, we had to disengage this one client. And then they ask, sometimes I ask them to help me review my website. Oh, hey, like, what do you think about my website? Do you think it's like intuitive? Do you think that it's clear what we do? So those kind of things are so important to have someone that you can share all of that with. Again, like I have attended like a lot of events, like at the DreamBank, where I have been able to connect with so many other, not only the people that are presenting, but also people who are attending, because hey, they're in the same journey, just like you. So talking about, we kind of briefly mentioned this before, but disengaging customers. That's something else that I wish I would have known my first year. So at the beginning, thinking back about like that scarcity mindset, not only with employees, but also with customers, that sometimes you would just keep a customer just because they're paying, but maybe they're not treating you well. Maybe they're not treating your team well. Maybe worth they're not worth keeping around. So on those cases, sometimes for me it was hard because I was like, oh no, but if I let go that customer, how am I going to be able to find another customer that's going to pay me the same amount of money? That scarcity mindset really like held me back that first couple months until I learned that it is important and it's part of the process to disengage customers, because maybe who you were when you were starting the business is not who you are after 6 months. In our case, when I started the CPA firm, we were serving all the different industries. So we were like a generalist CPA firm. It was slowly that we were able to find our niche and really like specifically work with certain industries. That meant that after like 6 months or 7 months, we disengaged one of our non-for-profit clients. So non-for-profit, it was not an area that we wanted to grow. First of all, because I was the only one that had experience with non-for-profit. So any work that needed to get done for that client really required most of my time. So it was not scalable. It was our only non-for-profit client. So even training other team members on that client was not as scalable because I was the only type of those clients that we had. And at the end, it was like a difficult decision, but we were able to disengage with them in a friendly manner, like send them to another CPA and make sure that they had like a smooth transition. But again, like thinking back, I think it took me way longer to disengage them, and I wish I would have done it sooner, because saying no to one customer is actually having more capacity to serve a client that better fit or vision. And again, remember how I told you that at the beginning the vision was to just be a CPA firm that helps a lot of different type of businesses. And then it was slowly that we started changing that vision into, okay, we only want to work with these certain industry, manufacturing, biotech companies. Again, like at the beginning, it was all like kind of like more of like a generalist, but slowly that blurry vision that is like, well, like I kind of think it's going to look like this, it starts to become more and more clear into, okay, this is what we want the business to be. And on that end too, I would like to say to you guys that at the beginning, you almost, I would say, depending on your industry, you almost have to be a generalist. Because someone told me when I was starting, hey, you cannot be selling oranges when everyone wants to buy bananas. So the first couple months allow us to kind of understand the market. We were able to see, okay, what do the customers need and want? Do they need just a tax preparer, or do they need a full-on accounting firm that has a staff accountant and a manager at their fingertips during the entire year? It allows to see, okay, which industries are looking for those roles the most. In our case, we learned that like tech companies, biotech companies that are in the growth phase, they're like seeking investor funds, or maybe they're working with grants. They need a CPA that will help them track all of that. However, they're not ready to hire a whole department, like a full-time controller, a full-time CFO. They're looking for fractional help that they can tap into at a reduced price, rather than like having to hire these people as full-time employees. So slowly we were able to read the market and really make our product fit what the market needed. So again, like at the beginning, I would say, keep your eyes and ears open. Don't think that like changing what do you do, who you serve, changing it is going to be wrong. No, like that's the whole point of owning your own business. You get to decide. So that's something else I wanted to share with you that I learned on the first year. Another key lesson that I learned was, you are the steward of your business. I guess it's never synced in the first couple months. Your job as CEO, president, principal of your business is to take care of your business. So in your first year, your team will feed off of your work ethic and your belief. Your role is to guide, empower, and hold people accountable to the vision. One of the first mistakes that I made is trying to just fit in and create kind of like just more friends than a team. And forgetting that my whole role is to be steward of my business and what's going to be the best for the business. So to give you another example, when I was starting out, that was the first year, one of a former employee really needed 3-month maternity pay leave. And we couldn't afford that on our first year. I was trying to make it work. And I remember meeting with my mentors about it. And I wanted to make it work. I wanted to come up with a plan that I could pay for 3 months. And then they were asking me, well, who are you going to hire to help during those 3 months? So they helped me see things in perspective. And they were telling me that you cannot do the good to one person when that is going to be detrimental for even the existence of the business, because then that will mean that everyone else will have more workload and there's going to be like more expenses, and it's not where we were at that point. Again, it's something that we thrive for, and eventually we'll be able to offer all of that, but it's not where we were at that point. And understanding that I always wanted to make things right for everyone, and understanding that at the end of the day, you won't be able to do that. And in the first year, you need to take care of the business and that it can continue on time. So again, your role is to guide, empower, and hold people accountable in your team. So that's something that I also learned that first year. And at the same time, have the difficult conversations throughout the year. Don't wait until like when you're doing like a review at the end of the year. Having difficult conversations again was something that I was not good at the beginning, and now because of the different experience I have learned that it's so important to do it throughout and be proactive about it. It's so important to do that. And someone told me, another mentor told me, that your team members is just like a professional team. You're going to be switching players throughout the year, and that's okay. One of the first mistakes that I also made was thinking that like, hey, we're a family, we're friends. And what I quickly learned is that sometimes if you don't have a clear line of authority and respect, that can become very blurry, and then you lose that accountability that you have in the entire team. So that's something else that I learned that first year. Another kind of like in this kind of a steward of your business that I want to share with you is culture cannot be delegated. At least in your first year, if you have a team, you need to be part of the team. I was trying to grow my business microwave fast, and I was trying to be very impatient about it. So I tried to delegate as much as I could early on. And I learned the hard way that culture cannot be delegated. You are the founder. You are the one that will need to inspire the rest of the team. You're the one who knows where you want the business to go to. So the first year at least, you cannot be delegating culture. You need to be part of the team. You need to be visible, and you need to be feeding all of these inspiration and vision and values into your entire team. The power of networking. So going back to the importance of having your community, your mentors, networking is so important. I really think it allowed me to find my first 5 clients for my business. So put yourself out there, tell people what you do. You're going to be surprised how these people in your network actually become ambassadors of your business. They will start telling people what you do, the value that you can add. So again, don't be afraid. Start sharing with people when you go to networking events what you do. Share your story. Your story is your superpower. It's what makes you unique. And what I have learned too is that people want to buy and connect with people, not really with like, hey, yes, I'm so good with like balance sheets, like I can do this depreciation schedule super fast. Like they don't care about that. They care that you're responsive. They care that you are there when they're like, oh my God, it's scared when an IRS letter arrives to their front door. Those are really the things that will help you connect with them. And I started doing that even before I started my business. And people connected with me as an individual, so they followed me to whatever other thing I was doing. So that's so important. Like, grow your network, connect with them. I would say once you meet them, add them in LinkedIn, make sure that you stay visible. So it's not like, oh yeah, I met this person, I completely forgot about that person and never to hear back from them again. Make sure you add them in LinkedIn, stay active, and like join conversations, comment, like. That really goes a long way. So this is like towards the end, I promise. So I want to share that building, not just dreaming. So we cannot just dream. I wish we could dream our business into existence. That will make it so much easier. You have to build it. You have to put the work in. It's not going to be always glamorous. It's very humbling because you're going to figure out that you don't know. Most of the time, you're just like, don't know, you're lost. But it gets better. Make mistakes. Don't be afraid of that. There are no signs that you're failing. That's signs of growth. So yes, and so this I want to close kind of with this like own it, lead it, and leave it. I try to stand by that, and I'm sure that you guys are going to make a lot of mistakes. I wish upon you a lot of mistakes so that you can continue to grow. And yes, and again, it's part of the process. I cannot tell you that I have all the answers or know it all. Absolutely not. I'm still part of the process. I have bad days, good days, but I show up every day towards that one goal that we all have to have our dream business. So yeah, so I think that that's all the kind of like the knowledge that I wanted to, the experience that I wanted to share with all of you.
Thanks so much for that, Victoria. We've had a couple questions that come through, and folks still have some time to get any questions that you would like to ask Victoria in. Go ahead and use the Q&A section, and I'll be sure to moderate them to Victoria. So we've got a question that came in here in regards to mentorship, and I know that you gave a little bit of insight in regards to kind of how to find mentors. Was wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit. In particular, how did you get connected with your mentor? It was the specific question from this individual. So if you could talk
Yes.
about how you found your mentor, and then also other ways outside of maybe what you had just listed there in terms of finding quality mentorship.
Yes. So in my case, I joined my state society. So the AACPA is the CPA Society of Wisconsin. So I met one of my mentors there. I just asked him if he could be my mentor. Another one was the Merlin Mentors. So Merlin Mentors is an organization here in Madison, Wisconsin, that you can apply and you get assigned like 3 mentors. Again, like it's kind of like a matching process, and I think that was super, super helpful. How did I met? I'm trying to remember how I met the other ones. And then I think that the other ones I met through another program from Starting Block that is called MathWorks. So I got so those have been like the kind of like the places where I have met them. But again, like sometimes even if they're not a full-on mentor, I have met in like the DMI events here in Madison, DreamBank events in the morning, like when they have like morning events. I have connected with different people that are like in different industries, such as like, like the social media. And then I am able to like talk to them about like, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? People are always so nice, so willing to share.
Thanks for that. Next question. How do you balance your cash flow and hiring your first employee? Did you start with a part-time employee first or a contract worker?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, I started first with part-time. So again, my first employee, it was only hourly, and at the beginning he was probably working about like 8 hours a week. It was more of like as a needed basis, and at the beginning I was doing it all, and I didn't want to fully commit. First of all, I thought like, oh my god, I don't want him to quit his job if I don't even have enough work, and can I pay him like a full-time salary? But once I started, like, he started part-time, we knew that we were a good fit for each other. Then after that, once I secured enough clients, and again, the way that my business worked with subscription, I knew exactly how much money I was going to have. And then I knew that like, okay, next month I'm collecting this much money, reducing all of my expenses. I still have enough to pay his full-time salary. So that's how I manage it. So I put in an Excel all of my monthly expenses. So in my case, I'm paying for a software. I'm paying for like, now I have rent, but back then I didn't have rent. I'm having to pay for insurance. So I put all of those expenses that are going out of my credit card. And then like even for things like, oh, networking events, coffee shops, if I'm going with people, like I will always give myself a budget of like, okay, I have $300 for that. And once I went through all of that, I knew, okay, based on my revenue, or how much cash coming in, and these are all my monthly expenses, this is how much money I have to kind of like invest on hiring someone. So yeah, that's how I did it at the beginning. Yeah, and I still do it the same way. Like we have a new employee starting in April 28th, and I do the exact same way. I go through all of my monthly revenue and then all of my expense, and then I see where we're at, and then to make sure that I'm not going under the negative numbers.
For sure. Still some time to get to last minute questions in. That's currently the end of all the questions that folks have asked currently. I do have a question for you though, Victoria.
Yes, yes.
Here at DreamBank, we're a community that is built up of fellow fearless dreamers, and we always like to ask our presenters, what's one piece of advice that you have for someone right now who is actively pursuing a dream?
How I think that the first one will be to just jump into the unknown and start pursuing it, even if it is small. Like you don't have to start this like glamorous big like corporation business. Like you can start small, and it's just the fact that you're starting what really matters and gets that momentum going. Without like motivation, runs out pretty quick. Like you're motivated for a couple like weeks, but then after that is that momentum that you have of like, okay, I'm going to stay disciplined, I want to show up in this networking events, I want to do this, to be able to grow that dream. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I heard a great saying a handful of years back, 80% out the door is better than 100% in the drawer. And really kind of how
Yeah,
I take away with that is just start doing the thing, and the rest will follow after. So thank you so
absolutely.
thank you so much for taking the time today to put
Yes.
together this presentation. Thank you all for joining us here. A couple last minute housekeeping items. We really much value all of your insights and words when it comes to feedback in regards to our programming here. They really help kind of dictate and guide what we put out for the community. So there's a brief survey that will be in the inbox in which you use to register for the event today. Would love it if you could just take a few moments and fill that out. That really helps us kind of guide and steer the content that we put out. Also, this event is being recorded. Many of our events are recorded and are shared on our YouTube page after the event. So keep an eye out for that as well. But with that being said, we will go ahead and cap it there. Thanks again, Victoria. Thank you all for
Okay.
taking time to join us, and we will see you all next time. Take care.
Thank you.